Thank you for joining us here on the March 2024 Client Corner. This meeting is really just a touch point every month. I started it in early 2024 for clients to get together and me to share some information that's going on that I see in the industry. This particular week is spring break for a lot of my school clients. I had a lot of people email back. Don't worry about it. It's going to be recorded, so you'll have access to this after the fact as well. What we're going to be covering is procurement primarily today in different forms or fashions. One of the points I want to start out with here, one of the key things to kick off, is I want to talk about some consistent donors that you should be asking for donations from every year if you're eligible. Then I'm going to have Wick speak. He was someone I met this past weekend in Atlanta area while I was working a school auction down there. And then I want to delve into the new auction item guide and talk about some of the things that are in this that you would be able to utilize for your own event or creatively think about ways to use it. Company updates, personal updates, and we'll go from there. All right, first off, kicking off, I want to talk about some of the consistent donors that have been giving year after year after year to various clients. You may not be eligible for them, or you may be eligible, but if you don't know about them, you can't even ask. So that's the key thing I want to talk about today is 3 or 4 of these that I pulled together that I think you should be reaching out to and give you a little bit of more insight into their donation approaches. The first one is Total Wine and More. Now, not everybody has a Total Wine store near you, but they are in a lot of states. They're headquartered here out of the Maryland area, and they're incredibly generous. They give 2 different types of donations every year to everybody. You either get a wine tasting for $20 in their stores. Many of their stores have a back area where they do different tastings. I've personally purchased this twice at different auctions, and I've hosted one event, getting ready to host another one. I think my friend and I are going to host it in Kansas City this time. The last time I hosted it was here in the Virginia area. I brought in a caterer, so we had food, we got to taste wines. They give you the option between trying different French, Italian, or American wines in general. I think they may even break that down like Oregon versus Napa Valley, that kind of thing. That is what they consistently give. If you've got a Total Wine store in your area and you go to their website right there, I've listed it, that is what you're going to get, is that wine tasting for $20. But if you know somebody, and this is important, if you know anybody at Total Wine and you can finagle into their better donation, what you're really wanting is the Italy, France, or Napa Valley trip that they'll give. It's 3 nights. It's in one of those locations. There's no expiration on it, and you get 3 nights with one of their partners in these different places. So these 2 couples traveling together are staying in a villa, in a nice vineyard, and they are wined and dined during their stay. They get to have different tastings. They get to have great dinners. I've talked to people who've gone on this trip, and this is a hot item. If you get this, it should be in your live auction. And it's something that they value at $5,000, and consistently I will see it selling for that and higher. So if you've got access to anybody, that's what you're going to want to ask for and ideally procure. The wine tasting for $20, hey, we sell that in the silent auction. It's given away as prizes and stuff like that, but that's not the high-end item. Number 2, Holland America. If you go to the website that I've listed there, they have 3 different cruises that they will give away. It's actually not a free total giveaway. The way that they do it is that they will tell you what they're giving you, and then you have the chance to buy it at a discount. So what most of my clients get is they get their 7-day cruise that leaves from Boston or the Caribbean, Mexico, and Alaska. I think that's what it's included. You pay $1,000 and it's worth about $4,000, $4,500 in that range. They are no expiration date on those, and those will sell well. I think they only give them out every other year. So if you qualify one year, you don't get it the next year. And that's one of those that might not give to schools. I can't remember the restrictions on it, but if you look at it, it'll tell you the restrictions on whether or not you're eligible. So good one to get. Usually it goes into the live auction. I suppose at some of my events, it might only go into the silent auction, but for the most part, it's going into the live auction. And people like cruises. They don't often see them in live auctions, so the crowd responds pretty well to those. Number 3, Elite Island Resorts. All right, lots of debate on these. In fact, on my Facebook page, there's an area for just benefit auctioneers. And recently we had a lot of auctioneers that were dogging these. I don't dog them though, because I think there's good ways to sell them if you think creatively about it. So Elite Island Resorts owns 7 or 8 different resorts in Panama, the Caribbean, and so forth. If you write to them, if you go to that link I have provided, they are going to send you a certificate, which is over there on the right, that is anywhere from 4 to 10 nights at these resorts. Now, it's not like you're getting the whole thing covered. These are, what are they called? All-inclusive resorts. So what they're donating is the stay. But then when you read the fine print, it says, oh, you have to pay $200 a night or $250 a night for the food and beverage because they're not covering that. Now, the way that my clients use this is, first off, you can always put it in the silent auction and just see what you get for it. But if you're looking to elevate these, look through them, figure out what you want. If you want the family style vacation, you're probably going to look at Antigua. They've got a St. James resort there. It's good for families. But some of them, I think they've got a Bermuda property. It's only for adults. So you've got to, if you would adventure, maybe you go to Panama. So figure out which one you want, pitch the others, get rid of them, don't use them. Focus on the one that you want. And then if you can get that underwritten by a donor for the food and beverage costs, then you're offering an actual stay. Usually we do this for 2 people, but you could add more money and make it for a family, but it's a full-fledged vacation then. If you go online and you read the reviews, this is again is also important. Make sure that it meets the standards of your audience. I know people who've gone to these and they liked them, but if you're children's hospital over here and you're doing a $1.5 million gala, it may not meet the qualifications you need for a live auction, but for a lot of my clients, it's just fine. I always say, do the research, look and see what the reviews are, get a sense of it. If you think it's going to work for you, great. You can apply for it, pitch the ones you don't want, and then see if you can get the other underwritten. I would not sell this in the live auction unless you were able to provide a gift card or fully underwrite the food and beverage part of it though, because otherwise it feels like a bait and switch. You're selling something that's a trip and then, oh my gosh, you're having to pay $2,500 or $3,000 plus what I paid at the auction. Not cool. You want to make sure that you've got an underwriter for it, but that's another one that is easy to get. And then finally, I'm not sure about this, but I just saw it on a client's auction list yesterday, and that's Capital Genealogy. They used to give all the time to, like, it was their way of getting out there and letting people know that they existed. And you can check and see, I saw it on a list, so I'm thinking they're still donating. It's like for 2 hours of genealogy support. They're a company out of New York State. And if you get this, I would say it's a silent auction item. It's not a live auction item, but they have been a pretty reliable donor in the past. So you can see whether or not they're still donating to folks such as yourself. So that's just a smattering. I want to encourage you as well. I talk about this class a lot, but that's because there's so much in it. If you go to the Digital Lounge and watch this, that's going to give you more information on all those and other ways to get items that are reliably out there. We'll leave it with that. I'm going to come back to procurement after we hear from Wick, but I want to introduce you to our special guest speaker here, Wick Smith. I just met him this past weekend. I was visiting with Mill Springs Academy before their event, and they said, oh yeah, we've got all these great gift cards, these restaurant gift cards. I said, oh my gosh, where'd you get them? And she says, oh, we've got a grandpa at the school who's been so good about going out and getting restaurant gift cards. So I wanted to make sure I met him, and we met over the barbecue table over on Saturday night. Mill Springs Academy works with kids who have learning differences, and they're located in the Atlanta, Georgia area. So with that, Wick, I have some questions I know I want to ask. So I thought what I could do is just give you some of the opening questions that I had, and then if you could share what you're doing with your magic to get some of these restaurants to say yes, I think it would be much appreciated. So
Sure.
the questions that I had started out is, first, how did you even hear that Mill Springs Academy was looking for volunteers to go and ask for items? And then what made you decide to go after restaurant gift cards? Like, did they say something when they talked to you? Was it a phone call? What was that process? That's the first kind of layout I want to give.
Sure. Well, Julie's on the line, Julie Colburn, and she's is kind of organizing, and they sent out. Well, we signed up I signed up to volunteer to help out for that early on, in the school year when they were soliciting volunteers for various projects. And having worked in the wine industry for years, I've worked with a lot of restaurants, and I have a pretty good feel for managers and owners of restaurants and what they're kind of looking for. So when we started, I guess about a month and a half ago, I just kind of targeted the area around where I live, which I don't think Mill Springs had really targeted before, even though there are a lot of students that live in this area.
They had reached out via email, or how had they reached out? Where were you that you found?
We were at the school at the beginning of the year. They have a session with a bunch of people representing different volunteer options, and so we just I signed up to participate with this one.
Okay, like a coffee thing at the beginning of the
Yeah,
year or something, and then
exactly.
so then they announce what they're doing through the year, and can you volunteer? So you signed up for that. All right, so then you had just decided, did they suggest, later, hey, go after restaurant gift cards, that's really what we need, or versus why, was it just because of your background and you're like, well, this is something I know I can get, or did they
Well,
talk about other?
early on, yeah, Julie, correct me if I'm wrong, but they've historically gone. This is my first year when we were affiliated with Mill Springs, but they've collected restaurant gift cards, I think, historically, and I just don't know that they've had that many as they had the last time. So,
Or as big. I will say
yeah.
that, yeah. And just to give everybody who's on the call here a sense of it, this is a second year gala, so this is something that's very much fresh to the community, and they're raising gross over 100,000. I think it's close to 120 this year, but somewhere in there. So I mean, they're growing, but this is that style of gala. So if you're doing a $500,000 gala, that puts this in perspective. Think back a few years, okay? So Wick, all right. So you decided you were going to target on the restaurant gift card. What did you do?
Well, essentially, just starting to canvas the area. Downtown Woodstock, there are a lot of smaller restaurants there. Some of them are locally owned. A few of them are owned by restaurant chains that have multiple outlets in the area. There aren't really any national chains there, so it's pretty good target. But I guess the first thing to keep in mind, make your list. Target the restaurants you support. If they've seen you in there eating, it's a lot easier. Make sure you're dressed appropriately. Don't go in and torn up jeans and things like that. You would wear what you would wear if you were going to the restaurant to eat. And don't be afraid to ask. The worst thing that happens is they say no. So you've got to just have confidence that you're going in for a good cause, and you're going to try to convince them that they can be a part of that.
You weren't asking though. I have been with an auction chair who, while we were finishing up the meal, she asked to speak to the manager and asked for a donation right then as we were finishing up our meal, which was a great timing. But in your case, you were not necessarily doing that. You were just walking in down to through the shopping center, right?
Including some restaurants where I've never eaten. So it's a little bit more of a challenge there. But again, if you're respectful and I think a lot of it's timing too. I used to work in the wine business, and we called on restaurants, and they, the managers are there during the open hours, but that's not the time that they want to talk to you. They're busy. They're worried about their customers. So you really don't, you kind of get shortchanged if you do that. What I try to do is to show up around 3:30, 4 o'clock, which is before they open the doors, but they're generally there getting, making sure people are showing up for work, and they're dealing with vendors and those sorts of things. If you go to the front door, you won't be able to get in to see them. But remember, most of these restaurants keep their back doors open because that's where all of their vendors come in to take orders and things like that. So, and I didn't have an issue with that in most cases. In some cases, the restaurants, if you get them right as they open or right before they open, the front door will be open and you can walk in. But then just, go in, make sure you've got some materials about the event, who it benefits, stress that there are a lot of people in the general geographic area who would take advantage of this. I think the single-owned restaurants or the locally owned, where there's maybe a few restaurants, I think those are a lot easier to get to a yes, because they don't have to go up this chain of command. If you start going to Macaroni Grill or something like that, they have this big set policy. and it doesn't always work. Also, in terms of what days to go, most of these restaurants, again, their heaviest days for a business are Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A lot of the managers take Monday and Tuesday off, so that just is not as fruitful a day. Make sure you have tax forms so that you can let them know that and give them something so they can get a write-off on it. Plan on having to probably make multiple trips. I think without exception, everyone I went to said, oh, check back with me tomorrow or email me and I'll send you something. Or and so they get so many people that come in asking for donations, and it's so part of sales is persistence. And if they know that you came back a second time, they know that you're serious about what you're trying to do. So just be prepared for a second round. Be sure to get the manager's name, contact info. You can follow up by email as well. I had one that's how I followed up and ended up getting the gift certificate. But the follow-up is just really, really critical. So that's pretty much it, I think.
And what I have a couple of questions there I want to take, and then I want to ask you what the follow-up is after the gala. Okay, but all right, so 3:30 to 4 o'clock, go through the back door. Is there anything when you go to the back, is there usually a sign there that they know where to enter from, or what? Just kind of, if for someone brand new, what are you looking?
Yeah.
You're just kind of like figuring it out and like,
You just pull on the door and see if it's open. I mean, a lot of them don't have signs. They don't want to encourage people. They're not necessarily trying to encourage people, but they have to have the vendors have to have access, so they can come in and take the wine order, the liquor order, or whatever for the day, the meat and grocery orders. I mean, they're doing business when the restaurant isn't actually open. So,
and you're asking to speak to the manager. Say, hey, sorry
yes.
guys, I'm in the back here. Is the restaurant manager around? Is that what you're asking?
That's all it is. And they'll say no, and then you can ask when would the manager be here, and try to follow up and leave something behind and say I'll come back by when he's here and talk. He or she is here, and then we'll talk about it.
Okay. You said not Monday or Tuesday, but one of the other days would probably be better because they take Mondays oftentimes. Yes. Okay. Take tax forms and then anything that talks about the event itself.
Exactly.
Jotted that down. And then the manager's. So even though you're getting the manager's name and so forth, but you're generally going back in person, you're not emailing or calling, you're generally making a physical appearance?
Yes. Most of the time, one I got, as I said, he told me that to email him, and I did, and he followed up and he said, come by the restaurant, I've got a certificate for you. So I had to go back to the restaurant to pick up the gift certificate. But it does. And
did you recommend the amount? Like, we're looking for a $50 gift card, we're looking for 100. Like, how did you avoid getting the 20s and 25s?
I said most of the gift certificates were 50 to 100, and just about all the ones I got were 50. So, when they hear two numbers like that, they usually go with the lower one. Maybe I should try 100 and 200 next year or something.
Okay. All right. And then you had mentioned to me as well, so we had, for those of you that are not familiar, we did something called a feeding frenzy at their event, whereby we're rapidly selling the gift cards at face value. But if there's a lot of interest in a particular gift card, we play a game called Auction Chicken, and we sell those for over their value. So when we were visiting Wick, you mentioned something about going back to them and talking about the sale of the items itself. What is your plan now moving forward that the event was on Saturday?
Yes, I've already talked to Julie, and we're going to, the Mill Springs usually sends out thank you notes to the people who donate, but I would prefer to take those thank you notes myself, because it gives me another point of contact with them. Again, thank them and let them know that we really appreciate it. And in some cases, tell them that one of the restaurants, steakhouse, sold the $50 gift certificate for, I think it was $120. And just to let them know that, what you're giving is getting multiplied. So I think that's going to position things for easier donations next year.
Okay. All right.
And one other quick thing I can, you talk about other alternative places to get gift cards. I was able to get a gift card for a foursome at golf at the local course here. That I actually live in the neighborhood. I don't play much golf anymore, but they were happy to make a donation as well. So I think that got $160 or so.
Okay. All right, good. Hey, Julie, do you want to come off the mute and add anything here as far as the conversation?
No, just so appreciative. And I will say one thing, last year, most of the outreach was done via email, like just going to restaurant websites and reaching out, and we got the much lower gift cards. So you could very much feel the difference with just, pounding the pavement in that way. It definitely yielded a much bigger return for us, and we're so appreciative.
Yeah. And I would say too, this is not, so some of you listening going, oh my gosh, I don't have time to do this. Again, the reason I wanted to bring Wick on in particular, I mean, this is a grandparent at the school. We've got other schools who've got active grandparent populations too. So thinking about getting them involved, in some cases, they may have more time. It's always a matter, Wick mentioned about the fact that they are looking for the follow-up. And, when I was in sales, that was the whole adage, right? The fortune is in the follow-up. You get the name, you get the number, the email, and then you persistent. You just make it on your calendar for the next day. You're going to follow up, or if they said 2 days in 2 days, whatever that is. So if you can pass you got a committee, ideally, you got a committee. So think about who you can involve on the committee. This isn't you as gala chair. This isn't you as the director of development. This is about trying to involve others. Last month, we had somebody who was an employee of the hospital who talked about how she used Facebook, but this is a way to utilize your volunteer population too.
Sherry, would it make sense if you're really going after restaurants to maybe do a little training session for the people that are volunteering to go out to these restaurants at the beginning?
It would be great. Some of the committees will have like procurement meetings where they'll bring in people. It sounds like yours was a little bit more like Julie has something more generic talking about all of the activities that the school is going to be doing. But it isn't unusual to have procurement kickoff meetings or procurement meetings, regular procurement meetings for larger events. And yeah, absolutely. Talking about the training, even what to say. I mean, like, who are you asking for? Hey, I'm a volunteer at the school. We've got this auction coming up. It's helping kids with learning differences. What to say is important.
Yep.
Okay. Can we show a little love for Wick over here in the chat? Could you say a little thank you maybe before he signs off? I certainly appreciate you coming on board, Wick. This is a small group even for what we've been doing here, but assured more people watch the recording than they necessarily show up. I don't do a great job of pre-marketing these. I just kind of like throw them in when I can. So there are going to be a lot of people that are going to watch this and benefit from it. So thank you for your time today.
Happy to help.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and continue then with talking about this auction item guide. Let me pull up this. So this is something that is downloadable right now. You can go to the free resources and grab it. I'm going to be talking about this in future meetings as well as I highlight different donations that might be of interest to you. But I would always suggest that if you are having a procurement meeting, making sure that you get this in the hands of your procurement committee and going through it. You can even assign that as homework. Like, hey guys, here's a copy. Could you go ahead and take a look at this before our next meeting and highlight things that you thought were interesting? Because if other people think it's interesting, then chances are it's going to sell well in your auction as well. So to that end, I wanted to highlight a few things. Now, those of you that have worked with me for a while can recite these 5 categories in your sleep, but these are the 5 categories that we target for the live auction: trips, dining, alcohol, toys for boys, and one of a kind. I specifically want to zero in on the one of a kind here and just go through these 4 or 5. First off, Taylor Swift. She's coming back to the US, so some of you might be able to get tickets for that. What we sold was overseas. So, think about that. If you got the right population for it and it'll sell, they'll go overseas to see Taylor Swift. Pickleball. So it's a hot sport right now. I've sold 2 times, maybe 3 times now in a live auction. It's not going to be your highest seller. One of a kind usually is not your highest selling category in the auction. But if you want to put together a little pickleball package, a pickleball tournament, or you've got somebody who teaches pickleball and you're going to pair that with 4 pickleball paddles, that can be something that's a little bit trendy that you might want to include in your auction. Again, it's not a huge high seller, so don't get excited about that. But if you're looking for something like, oh, we got a good crowd for that, we think it'd be fun, that's fine. You can add that in. Also, what I talk about in here is a tiki boat. this kind of ties in with the truffle hunting as well in a weird way. And here's why. There are going to be things that are going on in your locale that people might not know about very much. Like, for instance, when axe throwing started to become a thing in the metropolitan areas, if you were one of the first to include axe throwing in your auction, it did really well because people just weren't familiar with it. The same true of escape rooms. When escape rooms were brand new, we saw a lot of parties around escape rooms. People didn't really know about it. It was hot. It was trendy. It was enough that even though you could go out and get this any day of the week, because it was fresh, because it was new, we were able to put it into the live auction and sell it for really good money because it was just, oh, that sounds like fun. I didn't know it existed. Well, that's kind of where the Tiki Boat and Whitlow's is for the DC market, and truffle hunting for Oregon to a degree. I mean, there's people who are doing things that you might be aware of, but your crowd isn't aware of. And if you package that and put it into something that is marketable in the live auction, it will sell for well. So I'm going to just explain for those of you not in the DC area, or maybe you are in the DC area and you don't know about this. For a couple of years now, maybe 3 even, there has been a little boat. It takes 10 people. It's dressed up like a tiki bar, and it goes up and down the Potomac, and you can buy that for like $800. Alcohol, get alcohol. It's just a party on the Potomac. This isn't like a pedal bus or anything like that. You're just floating up and down the Potomac, drinking, looking at the monuments. Well, this year, Whitlow's has, I think it was just this year, maybe in 2023, Whitlow's, which is a popular restaurant over in Arlington. Now they have their own thing too, but it's not just for 10 people. It will do up to 46, I think, on this one. Same sort of concept. It's not a tiki bar, but it's a floating barge for drinking, and it goes up and down the Potomac. So I'm getting ready to sell the Whitlow's barge now in one of my school auctions. It's going to be kind of a group party and so forth. But again, fresh, new, people don't know about it. I expect it to sell pretty well. So the truffle hunting, what's going on in your area? Is there something new in your area, something fresh in your area that you can include in the live auction? That would be something to include. But you'll find tiki bar and truffles in here. The other one and final one before we close out is the water party. Water parties are something I've sold in a couple of auctions, school auctions now. And it's more or less usually on the last day of school, sometimes on a designated day. They are bringing in water slides, couple of water activities for kids, and they're selling that as either a class party or a grade party. So parents are getting together and buying this for their kids to enjoy. It's inexpensive to put on, $500, you know, by the time you get the pizza and pop and water activities, but it does sell really well. So that might be something for you school auctions who are looking for something to add. You'll see a description of it in the auction item guide. Company updates. The new website, again, I'm not working on that until May. Mika, my team member, is done with loading stuff up into a new digital lounge, but I have not had time to go in there and look at it. So hence nothing has happened with it. But once I have a chance to make some tweaks, you'll be getting information about the new lounge. And then finally, personal updates. Physical therapy is still in progress, but you know, I flew out to Oregon last week, and so I have to wear my compression socks, and I'm like stretching as I long flights out there, making sure that I'm not getting deep vein thrombosis, anything like that. And when I got off the plane, usually I have to stand there like for a second to allow blood to circulate through everything. And lo and behold, I was able to pretty much walk right away. I didn't have to like stand there like I was 82 years old and just kind of like, oh. I considered that a big improvement, that I was able to, oh, wow, look at this. My mobility has improved. So steep steps are still an issue, but other gains are happening. And yeah, thank you for your support as we're going through this. Try to avoid steep steps onto your stage because I won't be able to do those without help. And if I need help, find me a handsome man to give me help up there. That's all I ask. Any questions and answers as we close out our monthly March client corner? No. Okay. All right. We'll catch you in April then. And for some of you, of course, I'll see you soon because you've got auctions coming up. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.